Hello and good morning. My name is Steve Pugh. It's Friday, the 18th of March, 2022. It actually feels like ages since I last did one of these. I must admit, I very kindly had Ashley King do a guest presenter slot last week. And I must admit, that was a really kind of big moment for me, that something I wanted to kind of talk about today is almost some of you will have seen the kind of the growth and the journey and the development of different stuff kind of over the years, and almost where I am at the business now. So you've got the Roadmap MBA business book, which I won't harp on about, but you've probably all seen. It's a 252 page guide which basically walks you through start to finish how to grow any business, or likewise to grow your career within other people's businesses in a way to add more value, improve your skill set, that kind of thing. And our mission is to make business education accessible. So the way that we do that, it doesn't just mean free. It means that it's the way that we explain complicated concepts. We communicate through the written word in a book, but also we do podcasts and live streams and lots of kind of different things as well. And basically, yeah, what we do on the live stream is talk through, and I pick out some interesting topics from the week, which hopefully might be of interest. The three I've got today, one is actually to do with the cost of living increase, which I'm expecting to, well, it will. It's going to start to land now, and obviously the impact of that on small businesses and freelancers, both in terms of your own personal income, but then likewise some of the challenges and stuff that your staff might be going through, because it's a real thing that's happening today. So I wanted to almost kind of talk about that. One which is interesting, which actually came from a chat I had on Monday, but it was reinforced through the week, is actually to do with, do you feel anyone actually has a bias against you? I'm going to talk about this a bit later on. But sometimes in our own head, we think people do, but actually they don't. And it was a really interesting thing that someone said to me on Monday that I wanted to kind of talk about, hopefully kind of quite relevant. And then likewise to do with cost of living increase and what's going on in Russia and just everything in the world at the moment, why I think it's almost a really good time to kind of review your strategy and actually just, reassess everything you're doing, and actually, is it as good as it could be, that kind of thing as well. So what are we on? So it's 8:51 here in the UK. So I broadcast live from the north of England, and what we do, the roadmap is in 28 different countries now, and with different time slots, different things. It's always a challenge because the world is 24 hours. That if we go mid-afternoon in the UK, we hit more of the American market, but actually, are we then missing the Far East? And so I personally chose 9 a.m. ish on Friday morning. That kind of works for me and works around my own kind of schedule as the live stream. But everything we talk about gets clipped up and goes onto YouTube as well. So if you ever think any of this sounds interesting, just have a quick search for Steve Pugh Roadmap MBA on the internet, and hopefully it'll kind of come up. If you get involved in the comments, it should pop up on my screen. And then basically I love to react and talk to people and almost get your feedback and ask how you've kind of, what you've been up to this week. Because one of the other big things that we talk about on the course, good morning, Simon, as always. One of the things that we talk about on the course is actually, even if you have huge goals for your own kind of business or career, it's very unlikely that you achieve them first go, in one go, if that makes sense. It's often hundreds of little small improvements that really kind of build over time and kind of build momentum. So actually, if there's any kind of, successes or anything you want to celebrate this week, I love to kind of, hear them. So please kind of let me know. And then likewise, I also tend to talk about stuff that I've done as well, just to kind of make it relevant, that often you get people that talk the talk about business strategy stuff, but actually they don't do it themselves. So for me, the more I kind of talk about my journey and what I'm kind of doing, hopefully it's quite interesting. My interviews, so I spoke to Nisha on Monday, really interesting lady who's now basically a careers coach, and she helps develop women, but basically build confidence and stuff in what they kind of do. And I've got Josh Gill from Everflow Water on Monday. See, I can tell him out of practice, because it is harder than you think to actually stand up and do this, and Ashley did a kind of great job. On the kind of guest presenter thing, what I think is quite interesting is that I'm also started on the something called a scale-up program here in the northeast of England. And in the preparation of that, although I kind of teach this stuff and I know a lot about what I'm kind of doing, it's really interesting just to have someone else to kind of bounce ideas off and almost, speak to someone about the business and the plans. And what was quite interesting when I was almost building my kind of investor deck, slide deck to do with that, was actually everything up until today. So from the original version of the book to the second version, to the brand, to the website, to the live stream, to the studio, etc. Almost everything up until about now, but realistically I've got some more pieces to drop in, is building the structure. So it's almost building the essential bits which will allow me to almost grow the business and do what I want to do longer term. Then actually last week with the first guest presenter, it was almost now I'm at the point where to really kind of grow and scale that. The two remaining pieces which will hopefully land come June, July, will be the new website, which I'm really looking forward to, and then hopefully an app a bit longer term as well. And what we're looking to do is actually bring free business education to the world. What we want to do is give anyone in the world free access to good, high quality business education, where actually the more I work with different people and almost, listen and get feedback, often, not everyone, some people love to go really deep into the theory and read a 850-page book on organizational change in HR, which is cool, and if that's your thing, go for it. But for me, 95% of people in their careers kind of just want the answer. They want the ability to make a really good change quickly in their business or career. So that's kind of what we do on the roadmap. But actually, I'm now at that point to really start to grow and scale it, and the app will be a great way to make it accessible to anyone on their phone, literally in the palm of their hand, anywhere in the world, to actually just help them kind of make that change. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump into my first kind of piece today. But actually, if you have any comments, questions, anything, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Okay, which one to do first? I'm going to do the last one first. And this is why is it important to reconsider and really review your strategy today. So one of the key things I think is often misunderstood is actually what is business strategy? What is it that we're actually looking to do? And why is it important to kind of get right? I've mentioned this in previous weeks, but it's almost, I just want to reiterate it now, just in case someone just catches this kind of new. So essentially in a business, there are different decisions that you can make to help grow the business. All on their own, to be honest, could be perfectly valid decisions. So if you have some spare cash, do you invest in more stock to sell? Do you hire someone? Do you put it into sales and marketing? Do you invest in a new app? Do you give it away to charity? There are lots of decisions that actually on their own can make kind of perfect sense. What good strategy does is actually help align those decisions. So basically for your organization or charity or whatever it is, if you really know what your goal and mission is, you can actually help make better decisions to actually help you get to where you want to be. Prime example. So two identical businesses, well, business A and business B. Business A might go about its day-to-day activities, doing stuff, and actually they make each decision at the time based on what they think is the right thing to do. So actually, you've got some spare money there, you're a bit overworked. Actually, we could do an extra hands. Okay, let's recruit someone, which pulls them in that direction. But then something else comes up and they think, well, actually, I still like the sound of building an app and really getting more customers, so we'll do that one. And then actually, where's the money going to come from? We could work harder and sell more to get the cash in, or we could just raise finance, etc. And all three of those decisions are actually perfectly good, valid kind of decisions. But the question is, and the whole point of having strategy is to really understand where you are now, where you want to get to, and then pick decisions which align with your strategy. So almost if you take company B, the more you can understand about where you are now. So I'm going to use the roadmap as an example. I've done a lot of homework on my competitors, the market, what I think customers want, how they want it delivered, etc. And I've spoken about this in the past, but almost one of the big things for me is that it's been well proven that you have literally billion-dollar turnover companies that do online education, and they lose hundreds of millions of pounds or dollars every year because it's really difficult to do and actually just make kind of profitable. And the more I've kind of looked at it for my own kind of business model, the USP is actually having really low overheads. And why that's really important is, for one, it's incredibly difficult to copy. Yes, it's harder to get up and running, but actually if you can, you'll be in a much better place. And I've done all the maths and all of the kind of study in something called Blue Ocean Strategy, which I've talked about. For me, the crux of my business being successful or not often comes down to low overheads. So actually, through looking at the market and understanding what makes me special, what makes the roadmap different, the way for me to compete is that if I did what everyone else does, raise money, get a big team, sign up 1 million customers or 40 million customers, and charge £2,000 a course. That's what everyone else does. And I know from looking at the market that it doesn't really work, just because one of my biggest competitors, who are a company called 2u.com, on their website, they have to give all of their investor kind of feedback and stuff. Basically, yeah, they lost $210 million this year. They're expected to lose 220 million next year, and they've lost money every year since they launched in 2014. So I know that that basic structure doesn't really work, and they have 42 million registered users, 2,000 universities or colleges that they do their online education for. So me, as my strategy to copy model A just isn't going to work. I kind of know that. So part of my strategy and what bases all my decisions on is actually, if I can make the business work but based on low overheads, what can I do? So coming back to the same kind of 3 decisions, if I have some spare money, I could invest in a team and grow the business, but actually it's going to increase overhead, so it's taking me away from my competitive position. I can put that same balance, if that makes sense, into something like an app, which is growth and scalable, where as long as it'll take, it's live and it's up to standard, it doesn't actually increase my long-term fixed costs. So actually, I'll take that decision. One of the big ones I've been struggling with, because it is the harder way to do it, is that if I raise finance, so I go out and borrow or get equity investment of £300,000, don't get me wrong, it'd be very kind of welcome, but the issue is then the investors, rightly so, would want their return on the money. That actually, a big part of my growth plan is to do a freemium model, to basically give free business education to the world. And again, part of the reason for doing that is that if all of the competition is struggling to make money, charging thousands of dollars and doing it that way, the way to completely pivot and compete against it is actually to really go the freemium model. And that's what people like Duolingo do, where actually they're valued at $6 billion now, and it's a way that they teach languages. They actually do the freemium with paid ads. I'm not planning to do that, but the point is, so actually I could make the decision to raise investment, but it's going to take me away from the strategy. So actually I'm going to do it the harder way, but actually to bootstrap it and do it myself. And then last but not least, one of the other big things is when you look at these really big organizations, they take a really long time to make decisions and improve content and whatever. And actually the fact that I do it live and I use the internet and write most of the stuff myself and present it myself, I can actually react and be nimble, because again, I don't have a team, I don't have to consult anyone. But what you then have between A and B, if you have a good strategy, all of your decisions can move towards and pull you towards the goal, which will actually make you successful in the end, versus just making decisions which are all still good decisions, but they don't really align in a particular direction. And I just wanted to kind of talk about that. But the reason, again, why I wanted to kind of do it now is that there's a lot of change going on in the world. We have obviously the war in Ukraine, which is really sad. Interest rates are going up. American government is borrowing, I think it's always at $1.5 trillion economic stimulation. But there's a lot of stuff that I'm worried about that could impact the market. And actually, it could be that it's harder to raise finance. Your staff costs go up because people can't pay their wages. And I think the business environment will just get harder and harder and harder. So one of the things I wanted to talk about now is something almost nobody ever kind of talks about. So if you go today, so this is today's date, imagine the timeline. If you speak to most kind of consultants or webinars or whatever, what they say is go and do more marketing or more sales to grow the business. So you're here today, do sales and marketing to then grow more, do more, sell more, etc. But the one thing that I think most people get wrong is that very few people actually step back to actually look back. Is what we're doing actually the right thing to do, the best thing to do? Could we pivot? Could we iterate? Could we change our actual business model? Because actually, if you can get your strategy right, in the same example I did here, that if it's not as good as it could be, you're almost running into the wind. You've got a really difficult position that actually, unless you have some clear like differentiator against competition, you can do more sales and marketing, but it's going to be a much harder gig. Actually, if you can really review your strategy, make sure that everything you're doing is as good as it can be, you then have more confidence as you kind of go forward. So one of the things that we talk about on the roadmap, and I must admit we have 4 separate strategies, three separate chapters and modules on strategy. It starts at module 4, that's where I got kind of confused. And basically what we do is that we walk you through all of the things to consider to really help align your thinking for your own business or your own career. For one, so you know in which direction you're kind of starting to pull. But actually, if we can make your life easier and make your business fundamentally better, more secure, more efficient, more aligned to the customer, then when we do more sales and marketing, it'll be so much more successful than if we don't do this bit, and most people don't, and they just try and do more. It's often a tough kind of gig. So it's 9:05. I think I'm going to, just stop that kind of piece there. But if you have any questions, I'd love to know almost how often do you kind of review your strategy. Most people don't, is the honest kind of answer. They just assume that what they're doing today is right. And it might have been the correct thing when you launch the business, but actually when the world changes and things change, and for instance, with some of the businesses I work with, like steel prices have almost doubled since January. So if you have a business which is predominantly based around steel, suddenly your costs have doubled, which is massive. That could actually put you out of business. So the point is you really want to review your strategy and actually really learn and improve. Ideally every kind of 3 months, 6 months, just get a vibe for what's going on in the world and really just make it as good as possible. If you catch this on YouTube, my name's Steve Pugh. Please feel free to reach out or drop in the comments, and I'll always kind of reply as well. And on this channel, I mostly talk about business and entrepreneurship stuff as well. If you ever got any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Okay. It is actually quite funny that after a week off, with Ashley doing it last week, you do actually get into the swing of kind of learning to talk in a room on your own to a camera. But it is what it is, and it's part of this balance again of I know where I want the business to be in 5-10 years, that actually, to me, it's kind of just practice. But it does kind of work, and it's that, again, element of, yes, I guess it's part of the gig that I've kind of signed up to. But yeah, I'd love to know, again, where in the world you're kind of watching from. Just say hello in the chat. It's always kind of good to interact, and I'd love to answer any questions or do anything I can to help as well. Okay, I'm going to go for the next one, which is on cost of living. So I don't know about you, and I don't know where in the world you're kind of based, but here in the UK, basically interest rates are starting to go up. My council tax has gone up quite a lot, actually. Fuel has gone through the roof. I must admit, I think the highest I paid was 183 for a litre of diesel recently. Basically everything is getting more expensive. Supply chains, materials, components, food, everything is getting more expensive. So costs are going up. Unfortunately, and I kind of get it, wages and incomes are often stagnant, or in real terms actually going down. If your all your bills, your rent, everything was £1,000 in December, it actually wouldn't surprise me if rent, food, bills, everything was now, I don't know, 1,300, 1,400. And as soon as you cross that boundary between your costs are higher than what your income is, it's a really kind of difficult place to be. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, and this is true for businesses and freelancers or anyone, is really just things to kind of consider. Good morning from London. Unfortunately, on my screen, I can see what you can see, so I can't see your name. But I do love it when kind of people get in touch. I can kind of guess who it is. But no, I'd love to just drop in the chat just so I know who it is. I can't see from here. It just says LinkedIn user, but thank you for kind of getting in touch. So one of the big things, again, if you're looking at basically trying to deal with the cost of living or inflation and that kind of thing, what are things that you can do as a business or a freelancer or even in your personal life to kind of get through the storm? And this is someone that's been through multiple recessions. I work with a lot of different businesses, and what we're trying to do is help you get through the difficult time, make your life as easy as possible. And then likewise as well, especially if you're a business owner, there's a huge difference between if you have costs of £1,000 a month and your income is £2,000 a month. In theory, then you have £1,000 worth of money in capital and cash that you can reinvest in the business to really kind of, help you grow and do what it is you want to do. If your costs go up to 1,800, suddenly that buffer's really shrunk. Or likewise, if we can increase your income to £7,000 a month, suddenly then you've got £6,000 which you can invest and grow and use and whatever. And actually the delta between what comes in and what goes out is really, really important to control, because often this does actually dictate the success of any kind of business. But often people, when you work for yourself, don't always think about actually, are there things I can do? What should I do? Is it bad form to kind of reach out for pay increases, cost increases, charge rates and that going up? So what I wanted to do was give you 3 ideas, 3 things to consider, because I promise they're all really good for the long term of your business. So the first one. So the first one is actually reduce any unnecessary costs. We all have things in our businesses that we pay for that we might not necessarily always get value from. I'm going to just make up some, but it could be a trade body membership or a networking kind of membership that actually costs us £500 a year that actually, if times got really tight, could you do without it? Maybe a golf membership. It could be, so for instance, the way that I stream, I have 2 Restream.io accounts, which basically mean that I can run off multiple kind of channels at the same time. But I also pay for my Microsoft 365 license. I have Adobe licenses. I have lots of different stuff. But actually, to really look at your costs, but importantly, it's the non-essential ones. That what we're looking to do in the example I kind of mentioned before is that when we're kind of expecting a bit of a tougher time coming up, again, if you can get your costs down from £1,000 a month to £800 a month, that can actually mean a huge amount of kind of growth potential, either to give you a bigger buffer to help you survive longer if the cash kind of dries up, or even as you grow again. There's a famous saying in oil and gas, which was from the 2014 kind of oil price crash, was almost never waste a good crisis. Where actually, often we do have to make difficult choices on stuff to really kind of help us grow and survive and, grow for the future. That actually cutting away costs and expenses can actually really tee you up for growth, if that makes sense. One of the things I made a decision on, and this was in October 20, God, that's a long time ago now. I just realized time is flying. Was actually, I used to have quite a nice car, a Mercedes E-Class, but with COVID and lockdown, I wasn't really using it, so I actually sold it. I've been trying a Kia Ceed ever since. But actually that probably saves me £600 a month. So over the course of a year, that's £7,200 real world cash that I can either reinvest back into the business, I can live off, I can do whatever. But then if you look at your monthly outgoings and really get them as low as possible, even if your income stays the same, you're in a better position. And the truth is, I don't miss the car, is the brutal honest answer. But actually, I really enjoy having the extra cash now to invest back in the business to do stuff. That it was a decision that I made to really reduce costs. And it goes back to my previous point about kind of reducing overheads and why that's really important. Number 2. Is keep your clients happy. For exactly the same reason, there will be every business, if you sell B2B, or even if you don't, you sell B2C, your clients will also be under the same pressure for costs and overheads and supplier agreements and everything that they're in, that they will be, and they should be, looking at their own costs to say, actually, look, what do we spend every month? What isn't essential, and actually could we cut it back? Again, having been through the oil price crash in 2014, the company I was working for at the time, quite literally, we had to cut costs in order to survive. And when you literally have to go through that process, you can be pretty brutal. And the point is, what we want to do is really get to the point where your clients are happy, they love what you're doing, they see the value in what you're doing. And actually, yes, it's great if you can reduce your costs a little bit, but it's keeping the income coming in, because actually if that dries up or if that goes, it's not great. And actually, especially at the moment, it would be even harder still to bring in new customers as things get tougher. That actually the first thing any business should look to do anyway is keep your customers happy, but actually just really focus on it and do everything you can to listen to them, talk to them, give them some extra love, because actually that extra bit of love, time and effort might take you an extra hour a week, say, but actually if it keeps them happy, it keeps the income coming in, that could be worth an absolute fortune. It could keep you in business literally to kind of wait until things are good again, versus not doing it. And I think it's kind of just an easy win. Good morning, Brooke, how are you? And then last but not least, is increase your promotion. So for every business, every single business in the world, things are going to get tougher. And the one thing that people often, they resort to it, but often when it's too late, is actually to increase your sales, your promotion, your marketing, your stuff. And one of the big things that people often miss is actually there's often a big time lag between if you do a live stream or you do a podcast and you start to promote your new product or service. It could be realistically 6 months before you actually get cash through the door because of your sales effort. And the point being, depending on how much kind of cash you've got in the bank and where your business is at, yes, reduce costs, yes, keep your clients happy to keep money coming in, but actually really start your promotional push to actually sell to people to get those extra customers. Because again, if you can get them through the door, if your other customers who are going through a tough time end your contract, you're not dead in the water. But the point is, it's really important to actually start now before you need to actually really start to look at your promotion and stuff. In the roadmap, we actually talk a whole range, there's a whole module on marketing, but what we're really looking at is actually your strategy, your position. Why should people hire you? Why are you different in the market? And actually then how we communicate that through your personal brand and growth and stuff to the world. So that basically, yeah, people want to buy your stuff and hire you and kind of buy into what you're trying to do. And especially as the world is about to get tougher, these are all really good things to do. And then even if you don't believe in any of what I've kind of said, if you're still looking to grow a super profitable business that will skyrocket in the future and really kind of, do all the good things, do all of these things anyway. Even if it was a really bright, sunny, shiny day and everything looked fantastic and cost of living was lower and whatever, it's always a good thing. Reduce costs, especially anything that's non-essential. Really kind of look at that. And that's true in your household as well, but that's a personal kind of choice. Keep your clients happy. It's so much easier to keep and retain existing clients and arguably even upsell them on different stuff than it is to find someone new. So keep your clients happy. And I can't even read my writing on the last time. It's increased promotion to really just help get those orders coming in, get people talking about your product and really kind of get people, interested in buying your stuff. So it's 9:17. Thank you for any of your kind of comments and stuff as well. Brooke and Simon and a few of the other guys. I do love it when people kind of get in touch and it pops up. It kind of makes it a lot more kind of interesting for me. But I'd love to know kind of what you've been up to this week. Where in the world are you watching from? I kind of know where Brooke and Simon are, but actually just for in the past we've had people in India, in Dubai, in America, kind of all over the world. And, I genuinely appreciate your time and stuff as well. And then last but not least, so this is actually hopefully quite an interesting topic. Well, I hope it is. That with the launch of the roadmap, there was always the element of where not everyone likes what I'm trying to do. So it's obviously positioned as an alternative MBA course. So it's an alternative to other business courses which are out there. And my whole thing about that is that likewise, if you can afford to go to a proper university, proper business school, pay £10,000 to £100,000 or up to $250,000 to go to certain universities and give up work for 2 years and do that kind of thing, do it. You'll have a fantastic time. You will absolutely love it. And it's the best option. It's like going to a Michelin star restaurant. It's the best of all worlds. And if that's your thing, absolutely kind of do it. With the roadmap, what I wanted to do was create an alternative to that actually, in many ways, we could do for free. We certainly, send out free courses all over the world. But actually, it's brand positioned as an alternative MBA so that people kind of understand what MBAs are. And this is an alternative to that it really helps on the buying journey, that it just takes them so much further down that kind of journey as they start to learn about the product. So it's done on purpose. But a lot of people don't, say a lot of people, some people don't like that because actually they might have been to university, they might have done a proper MBA, and they don't like that it's now an alternative, cheaper route, even though there are lots of them. So I almost had a chip on my shoulder in some ways, that it's almost slightly defensive in what I'm doing. And yes, I have actually had people say that, who am I to try and do this? I'm not Alan Sugar, I'm not Stephen Bartlett, I'm not Elon Musk. So actually, why do I even think that I could do this? And it's funny that I almost had that, and I've carried that with me almost as like, it gives me fuel to kind of keep going. Because for me, what I'm trying to do is fight for the people that don't otherwise have access to traditional business education. It's too expensive, it takes too long. They might not have the academic grades or background that they feel they can't access it. They could be in the wrong part of the world. It could take too long to kind of read, and they work at 2 a.m. and they need to pick things up. And there are hundreds of different reasons that actually prevent people from accessing business education. So what I'm trying to do is make it simple. So I know who I'm kind of doing it for. And actually, even me kind of growing up, I would have loved to have done a proper MBA, but I could never have afforded to, and now I can. But the point is, I do believe there's a group of people there that's what I'm trying to build it kind of for. So I've almost had this bias. And then actually, almost also because in the UK, it's called a working class background. In America, it's kind of blue collar background. But it's that balance of where you've always had to work really hard for anything you've got, and almost there is a chip on your shoulder that drives me, that compared to other people that might have had a more privileged upbringing, that's something that kind of fuels me inside. And it was from a conversation on Monday. I had a lady say to me, actually no, it was funny, she did almost question if people actually have that bias, or do I just think they do? Because she had something similar where she launched her own kind of consulting business. And she was sure that everyone would be criticizing her and not like her and not want to help her and whatever. And it turns out that they didn't. And also from a separate conversation on Thursday, I was talking to someone else who's ex-armed forces. And in his bio, I put ex-arm, ex-Air Force, went off to do a MBA at Durham and did all this really great stuff. And his belief was actually that people would use that as a negative against him, or it was perceived as a negative. And actually, he's used that as almost as a fuel for his fire, and actually what's really driven him to do his degrees, do his MBA, do his lots of different stuff. But it's just funny how actually all three of us felt like people didn't like us, or whatever reason, that almost gave us fuel and stuff to really kind of drive forward. But actually in all three of the cases, okay, in some rare cases it might be true, but often it wasn't. It was almost in our own head. And I just think it's that really thing of actually just asking, is it just in your own head? Because I think for me, in some ways, although some people won't like what I'm doing, actually probably is the honest kind of answer. So 2, a recommendation is always just to own it. So for instance, be proud of your background. If you're in the armed forces and that is your genuine kind of true story for how you got to where you are, I think it's brilliant. And to be honest, even if people don't like it, it's still kind of true. So I would just own it, be super proud of it. And there will be more people that really love you for what you've done and what your story is than the very small amount of people that might not do it. But it's just kind of own the story, I think, is the most important to do. The third one is through your personal brand. So your personal brand is essentially everything that people kind of think about you and what would they say about you behind your back when you're not there. So personal branding is so important because essentially it's what the world kind of thinks about you. And part of the reason why I do this and why I want to talk about it here is that if you feel that people have a bias against you because I was in the armed forces, so people might not think as I'm smart as other people, whatever the thing is, there are still things that you can do to control that and control the narrative. And we do that through your personal brand. One of the reasons why I kind of wrote the book and I send it to a lot of people is that as a management consultant, one of the main things and the people I guess go up against other consultants, they're obviously often old white male and stale. So you're talking about white males that are probably 50 plus. They've been around a little bit, often not very good. But that's often who I compete against. And one of the things that I always kind of had at the back of my mind is that one of the things that they could say, because I'm 38, so I'm 20 years younger than some of them, you know, who the hell's this guy? Doesn't know what he's talking about. He just talks a lot on promotion, but actually he hasn't got the experience. Someone could say something like that, and almost that's the bias for me. So one of the things with my personal brand that I purposely do is, for one, I wrote a book on the topic. So actually when I send this to people, it's hard, hopefully, if people actually get this, to say it's crap. But actually it's the proof in the pudding. And then likewise, when I do live streams and I talk about different topics and I do this, again, it's all personal branding. It shows, hopefully, that you can be an authority and an expert on a topic, which again diffuses anyone's ammo and bias against you, which will really help you move forward. And it's just really interesting to kind of think about. And last but not least, so the most important thing that all of us can do, sorry, my voice is a bit hoarse today. Yeah, the most important thing that all of us can do in our careers or lives or whatever, even if people don't like us, is execute. Just get really, really good at whatever it is that you do, and almost be so good that it's undeniable. That actually, if I'm trying to think, it was Jesse Owens in the Olympics back in, you know, pre-World War II. You know, Hitler was there, and he was, I think, one of the only kind of black athletes in the stadium. So he would have felt a lot of pressure, but he went out and just absolutely nailed it and won. But the point is, all of us actually have the ability to execute. And if people say that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're whatever, we can prove them wrong. So actually, I don't even think that necessarily having a bit of a bias or a chip on your shoulder is a bad thing, as it can give you the fire to really kind of grow and develop and learn, and the hunger to really kind of excel in your business or career. But still, often it's not as bad as we think it is. So almost, if you can, use it for all the positives, use it for the fuel, the fire, the encouragement to really help you, you know, fight your cause and live the dream. But also don't let it get too much that it actually kind of, you know, builds up and works against you. So at 9:26, I think I'm going to call it a day there. On Monday, I'm interviewing Josh Gill from Everflow Water, so hopefully you might find that kind of interesting. Lots of stuff kind of coming through the pipeline in coming weeks or months. The big one for me is, it will be the website and the app, and I have to record all the new kind of video and stuff to that. For my own business, going back to my previous kind of slide, I am looking at how can I reduce costs, although actually I'm quite good at that anyway. I want to keep my clients super, super happy, so I'm going to do everything I can, because again, the whole success of my business, I can have all the best plans in the world, but if I stop getting paid, the whole thing dies. So I need to kind of do that. And then just, yeah, trying to keep executing, keep working away on the plan, doing my live streams, that kind of thing as well. And I would recommend that you do the same. It doesn't matter almost what happens over the next kind of few months. It could get tougher, it could get easier, we don't know. But actually, if we all kind of try our best and that kind of thing, that's all we can kind of ask for. So have a wonderful Friday, have a wonderful weekend. I will hopefully see you next week. If I can ever genuinely do anything to help, please feel free to reach out. And yeah, cool. Well, my name's Steve Pugh. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon. All right, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.